got some different colours of yarn here, my usual hook, scissors and cup of tea. So grab your stuff and let's have a look at these colour changes. Okay, so I have made a few of these beginning rounds of granny squares, so that I can show you some colour changes. So I have done 2 rounds of the granny square so far in this green colour, and then I've done my slip stitch into my top chain, and I'm ready to do a colour change. So we have to imagine that this is the working yarn, it's still got the ball attached. Okay, so I've done, so like I said, I've done my slip stitch, and then I'm going to bring my new colour, and this is one way you can change colour. So you can take the tail of your new colour, pop it behind, grab your yarn, pull this new colour through that loop of your existing colour, and then you're going to pull that existing colour down. So I'll bring this up right down against the work, so it's right down here next to your work. Okay, and then just make your loop a bit smaller there, ready to work, and then you are ready to go. You can literally pull this green one down as far as possible. Okay, and then do your chain 3, and you would just start in exactly the same way as you would any other granny square. So I'm just going to do a small bit of this just to show you. So just continue as you would. 1, 2, 3. This isn't a granny square tutorial, by the way, so if you think I'm going too fast or I'm not telling you what I'm doing, then that's because I'm not actually showing you how to do a granny square today. If you haven't seen how to do a granny square, check out our playlist and look for day 1 of the KAL, and that's when we showed you how to do the basic granny square. So that's how you change colour for that one, and you can see here that your colour change is barely visible there. Let's bring this up, it's here. Okay, so it's barely visible. Now you've got this tail here, and you've also got your green tail behind. So what you can do, because these at the moment aren't totally secure, they've got no knots in them, the only thing was that we slipped it through. So what you can do, just to keep it slightly secure until you go to sewing your ends, is to just do a loose tie on there. Okay, just give it a loose tie there. So that is how you would do that type of colour change. Now these bits that you can see here, they will, if you can see it, can you see these bits here underneath here? They will come up the back and they will get changed, get sewn in, sorry, they will get hidden. Okay, so don't worry about those. Now I'm just going to finish this round off, and I will show you another colour change when I get back to here. Okay, so I've completed this round by doing my slip stitch into the top chain there. So the next way you can change colour is, if I grab this pink, the next way you can change colour is similar to the last one, but I'm just going to show you slight problem that you might encounter. So I'm just going to snip this off, snip that one off, and what we're going to do is bring this pink one in. Let's move that out the way, bring the pink in. I'm going to join it exactly as we did before, so tail at the back, and then bring this in and slip it through, and then pull that red down. Okay, now we've got this at the top of this chain. Now if you look here at our last colour change, excuse me, it's not too noticeable that it's actually above the green. If you can see, this red is above this green. Now, so we've joined our colour in, And then if we look at this red-green change, you can see that the red is actually on top of this green rather than beside it. Okay, if you look at all the rest and turn it around, you can see that the red is beside the green, not on top like here. Now, when you've got your granny square done, you know, when it's a lot bigger, that will just fade into insignificance, really. It won't be a problem. But if you decide that actually you don't like that look, then the thing you can do is pull that red down nice and tightly, and then with this new colour, I'm going to, now this is, you're working backwards here, but put your hook into this space, so this space here next to your loop, put your hook in there and do a slip stitch. Okay, and then pull the tail of that pink, so grab the pink, pull that tail down tightly, and you've done a slip stitch into there. Okay, pull that down tightly. Okay, so now your pink is in this space rather than above. And then what you would do, because we've got this cluster here, so you wouldn't be working in that anyway, what you'd do is do your chain 3. Okay, so you've slip stitched over into this space. You've done a chain 3 which counts as a double crochet. Now this chain 3 will count as your double crochet, your last double crochet of this cluster here. Okay, so you're going to leave that and move on to your next cluster, which will be over in this space here. So move over to there and do your 3 double crochets like so, and then into your corner like so. More yarn. There we go. So let's finish this corner. And 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. So there we go. So now, if you look at this, you can probably see the difference. Actually, you won't. I'm going to finish this round and then I'll show you the difference. Okay, so I'm nearly at the end of this round, and if you remember, I said this chain here would count as our first or last chain of this cluster here. So I'm just going to do those last 2 here just to remind you of that. So I've got 2 there and this one, so you're going to just join in to your 3rd chain at the top there. So you might need to give your hook a wiggle. You know that I often say you have to give your hook a wiggle through the tight stitches. Oh dear. Slip stitch, not a double. What am I doing? Right, okay, let's do that. Let's do that slip stitch. Oh dear. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to fasten that off. Let's just cut this yarn. Oops. Fasten that off. Okay, so now if you look at this square so far, you can see that the first colour change, I'm just going to pull these tails up because they would be sewn in. Okay, so you can see here our first colour change was just here. Now this red is coming up from above this green. That's fine. If you're doing a big blanket or something, it's not going to show too much. It's really not when you've got all your other colours going on. It would take a very trained eye to see that. But then if you look at this one here, this all of this pink is coming straight out of this gap here. All of the pink is coming up from this gap here. Okay, it's not on top of the other colour and then the rest inside like this one here. So it's kind of up to you which way you prefer, really. So that's one way you can do your colour change. Okay, I'm going to show you another colour change now, because this was on this one here we slipped over to the right, whereas because of how we needed to sew our clusters. But if it was like this one here and you were going to work straight into here, then instead of slip stitching backwards, you would just slip stitch into this space here. So you slip stitch that red into this space, and then you would start your chain 3 from within this space. Okay, so like if you look at this pink here, if I changed colour right here, if I did my chain 3, it would be above this pink, just as it is here, whereas if I did a slip stitch into this space, then my chain would come straight up from within this space, not on top of the colour. Okay, so that's one way of doing your slip stitch colour changes. And now I'm going to grab some new colour of yarn, and we will do a different variation. Okay guys, so sometimes a pattern will say to change colour into, for instance, into a corner space. Okay, so you're not changing colour with the last colour you used, like we've done here. You're changing into the corners. So find your corner space, and then with your new colour, you can do the same kind of method that we did with those 2 colours, in which you take your, so pop your hook through, put the tail of your new colour behind, and then you would just slip that through and then do a slip stitch there, pull that down, and that would be your slip stitch. And then you would, let me just get some more yarn, and then you would just work into this corner as instructed to. So if you were told to do 3 double crochets, and so you do your chain of 3, and then you would do your 3 double crochets, and you would work into the corner just as you've been instructed. Okay, so that's one way you can do it. It's the slip stitch, the same as these. And once again, remember that this tail isn't totally secure, and if you're doing this kind of gappy pattern, it's hard to work over your tail because it's going to kind of carry, and you would see it over these spaces here. So it's really hard to carry your yarn in this kind of pattern. Okay, so that's one way, and then you can just secure your tail after, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. The other way is to start with your slip knot. So start with your slip knot. If you need to know how to do the slip knot, then have a look at how to number 1. And don't forget, if you need to slow this video down, then up in the top corner or just below, depending on what device you're using, there is an option to slow the video right down. And also pause and rewind as well. So the other way is to make your slip knot on your hook, and then insert your hook into that space that you've been told to by the pattern. You might need to hold on to your tail just to keep that secure, and then you would do a yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over, well, then slip stitch, sorry. Okay, so doing a slip stitch there, but because you've already got your slip knot, it just makes this tail a little bit more secure. Okay, just makes that a bit more secure, and then you can continue with your chain of 3 and your 3 double crochet, or 2 double crochet, because that first one counts as a double crochet. So that's the other way you can join into a space with a new colour, or space, or a stitch even. That could just as easily be going into a stitch, because you would just go into the stitch like that, and you would use your have your slip knot on your hook. Okay, so that's another way you can join in, guys, is using your slip knot in there like so. And the other way I was going to show you was using your slip knot, go into your corner. If you were asked to do a single crochet, you can do your single crochet straight away without a slip stitch. Pull through, and then instead of slipping this loop over to do your slip stitch, you can just go straight ahead and do your single crochet. So you've joined your colour and you've done your single crochet. Now that only works for single crochet because as you know, we do the chains to bring our hook up to the height of the stitch, because we work downwards on crochet, so you need your hook up at the right height. So you can join with a standing crochet if you know how to do the standing chainless double crochet or half double crochet. You can do that, and we'll learn that in a future episode. So you can join with the single crochet or the slip stitch if you like to. So that's how you can join into something like a granny square or something like that. I'm just going to show you another way of joining colours if you're working in a row. So here is my, I've got 3 rows of single crochet here. I did a chain of 15, and then I went into the second chain along. The first chain counted as like a turning chain, and then I've done 14 single crochets along, chain 1, 14 back, chain 1, 14 back. So I've done 3 rows of single crochet, and now I want to change colours. So this is the end of my 3rd row. I want to change colours. So again, it's like how we did with the granny square. You can just take your tail, have it to the back, and then do a slip through there. Pull that green down, so your green is right down there, and then you do your chain 1, turn your work, and then you can that chain doesn't count as a stitch. Okay, we're just doing single crochet, so that chain doesn't count, and then you can do your 14 single crochets all the way along. And that is how simple you can change colours at the end of a row. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the end of this row and then I'll meet you back. Okay, so I've actually done 2 rows of white. I did 1 row, and then I did a chain 1 to turn, and then I've done a row back of those single crochets, because I want to show you the colour changes all on the same side so we can compare them. So this next colour change is where I haven't done my last single crochet yet, so what you need to do, pop your hook into that last, pop it into the last single crochet. Now this last one on the row, as you know, I've said before, is not always easy when you're working in rows, so pop it through that last stitch. There we go. Make sure you've got both loops on there, okay, both loops, and then you're going to pull through. Okay, now while you've got your 2 loops on here, now if this was double crochet, it would work exactly the same. You would do your first yarn over, pull through 2, and then when you've got your last 2 loops on the hook, what you do is you grab your new yarn, so grab the tail of your new yarn, pop that down to the back, and then as we've done before, you're going to pull through, but instead of pulling through 1 loop, you're pulling through 2 loops, okay, pulling through 2 loops, and then you can cut off this previous colour. Let's move that out of the way, and then we've got our new colour here ready to start your new row. So I'm going to start the new row to show you. Okay, so let's, getting all caught up. So start the new row. So we would chain 1 to turn, remember, turn your work, and then you would start your first single crochet in here. So first single crochet, oops. There we go. So 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to work along this row, guys, and then I'll show you that colour change at the end. I'm going to work along this way and then back, and then I'll show you how that colour change looks. Okie dokie, I have finished my 2 rows of pink. I'm going to try and zoom in a bit, see if I can zoom in. go. It might not be quite as clear, but I'll try and show you these changes. There we go. If that's not as clear, guys, I apologize. But if you see here, this is the back of the work. This is where we changed the green. Now you can see when we changed to the white, you've got a little tiny bit of green on the white row. Okay, you can see a little bit of that there on the white row at the bottom there. But again, like I've said, you know, it kind of disappears in the rest of the work when you know, if you're making this into a big square or blanket or whatever sewn together, it will it won't notice enough to worry about. So that's the change where we just did the slip. And then if you look at this pink change here, you can see that the pink starts right at the bottom of that row, so you haven't got this little tiny bit of the previous colour, you've got it all the way to the bottom of that row. So if I turn it over, you can see it from the right side. So see if we can see this here. Okay, so this is our green to white change. So again, it doesn't show quite as much as it does on the back. By the time you get these tails sewn in, it won't show quite as much. There's your green change, green to white change, and then here is your white to pink change when you went through those last two loops on your hook. Okay, so that's how it looks, and that's your two options that you can do when you're changing at the end of a row. I'm just going to zoom out, and then we'll show you how to I'll show you how to do a mid-row colour change. Okay, so I have worked 6 single crochets along this row because I want to have 7 of each colour. So I've done 6, and we're going to change it in the same way that we did our white to pink change. So you want to start your next stitch and then have 2 loops on the hook. So if this was a double crochet, you would do your yarn over, pull through, and then you would do yarn over, pull through 2, and leave your last 2 loops on the hook. Okay, so you want your last 2 loops on the hook, and obviously for single crochet it's just 2 loops anyway. And then you're going to grab your new yarn. So grab your new yarn, pop your tail to the back, and then you're going to pull that through those last 2 loops. So you're going to complete that stitch with your new colour of yarn. And then you continue in exactly the same way as you would previously on a single crochet, or whether it's a double crochet, doesn't make any difference. You just continue your row as you would. So that last pesky stitch again. Okay, so just continue that row as you would, and then if you just pull that loop there, if you look here, it is virtually seamless. See the top just goes from one colour to the next, the front one colour to the next, and the back again virtually seamless by the time you sew this in, because you will sew this red this way and you will sew the pink that way, and it will be a virtually seamless colour change. Okay guys, I just wanted to say that colour changes apply to if you're working in the ground as well. If you've had to start with say 16 double crochets and then change colour, it works in exactly the same way. You can do your slip stitch by putting your new colour through. You can do your slip knot on your hook and then start with a new colour in a new space. Entirely up to you. And also if you needed to colour change as you go around, you can do that the same way that I said, by keeping your 2 loops on your hook and finishing that colour with the new colour. Okay, so it works in exactly the same way in whatever kind of design you're doing. So that's how you do your colour changes. Now if you've done colour changes, you are going to have some ends to sew in. I've got here's one we did earlier. So this is the one that we did earlier. So for every colour you are going to have two ends. You're going to have your starting end and your finishing end. Okay, so for every colour change you will have two colours. So we've only got 3 colours here, which means we will have 6 ends. So 2, 4, 6, there we go. And I've got some work here that I've done before. You might recognise this from, I think this was day 53 or day 54, the Cheerful Child Emma square. So I have some ends going on here. I think I must have sewn over one of my ends. If you've got closed in work like this, then it is possible to do your crocheting over the top of those ends and secure them in as you go. But if you've got more open work like the granny square, as I said earlier, it's more difficult to sew them in, because if you were carrying the yarn over, you would get this, you would get a red line over there. If I just come around here, you would get this red line going along there and then around here, which isn't really gonna make it look too great. So if it's closed in work like this, or where are we, in here, closed in work, you can carry the yarn. I think I carried the yarn on this pink one. Yeah, I did. You see here there's no yarn, so I carried some of that around. So if it's closed in, you can carry the yarn across and crochet over it, and that works great. You know it's going to be nice and secure. But what if you can't, and what if you've got some of these ends left? So what do you do with them? Well, what you don't do is get your scissors and cut it here. You don't cut it right down at the work. I know this one doesn't have a knot. This one has a knot. Oh, I've got a knot there. So let's just cut that off right there, shall we? No, stop. It's like this one here. Okay, so I fastened off my work here. So I could just cut that there, couldn't I? No, 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 no. I'm going to show you a disaster that I had in my early days. Okay, now I've zoomed the camera out slightly. I'm sorry guys, I can't get too much closer. This is a cushion that I made with granny squares. Can you see if I turn it? Can you see some nice lovely granny squares, some nice wooden buttons on the edges. Lovely. This side looks gorgeous and beautiful. Okay, not many colour changes going on that one. If I flip it over, this is where my disaster happened. I've got a nice square there. That one looks quite nice, and where are we? This one looks quite nice down here. Lovely. This one's not too bad either, but let's come up to here. Now this is one that obviously I changed colours every row. Here it looks like it's been attacked by a dog. Look at this big gap here. Look at this. Honestly, look, it's just falling apart, and then if you see here, there's a bit here, look, it looks like it's been attacked by a dog. We don't even have a dog. So this is what happens to it. So but you know, it's my first project, my first big project, and well, I need to try and repair it, but I'm not quite sure how at the moment. But you know, if people come round, I just flip it over. Lovely, lovely, nice cushion, nothing wrong with that. But yes, so this was because I was knotting the colours. I was knotting them, and I thought I was sewing them in rather nicely, but it turns out I wasn't doing it good enough. I was cutting too close to the knots, and disaster struck. So we're going to avoid that, and I'm going to show you some ways of doing this securely. Okay, so sewing in our ends, some things you'll need are either a large eye needle or 1.75 and a 2mm. And I've also got these 3 various sizes of needle. Now this one has got a really large eye and it's quite blunt. It's got a bit of a tip, but it's quite blunt. And then it goes down to this one's got a bit of a point, and you can see that it's got a bit of a point and a slightly smaller eye. And this one is, I think this is kind of a bit of a mixture. It's a bit blunt with a smaller eye. So generally this middle one with the point is the one that I use the most, okay? These small crochet hooks work quite well, but you can't get right into the yarn. So but it's up to you, your preference. These work really well if you've got a tight space and a really short piece of yarn, and you need to get it through and your needle won't go far enough because it's a really short piece of yarn. Okay, and then obviously you're going to need your scissors. So let me just zoom out and thread my needle and I'll show you what we're going to do. Okay, now I've just forgotten also with needles, if you get a needle which has got a large eye and a point, it's known as a chenille needle. They work really well, and I'll talk to you about why they work well as I'm going. And just also to let you know, the place that I normally finish is with my initial tail. This is my initial tail. Now I'm right-handed, so my tail is on the left. This is the working in the row, sorry. My tail's on the left. If you were left-handed, your tail would be over here on the right. Now I usually leave that till last because it just reminds me which is the front. So I know that my front is when the tail's on the left. If you were left-handed, your tail would be on the right for you to have the right side facing you. And it just means that I know where I'm sewing in, because you want to try and get all your threads sewn into the back. Even if it's pretty much reversible, you want to try and get your yarn sewn in on the back. So I'm going to show you the easiest one first, which is when you're working in rows with quite a solid piece like this. Is quite solid. Okay, so thread your needle and then basically you're going to go in and out of your work. You're going to try and keep your yarn all to the back, so put your thumb or finger over the back of your work. Well, the front of the work, but just so you can feel if that needle is coming through. And you're going to thread some through. Oops, try not to get the other yarn caught. And then just thread it through a few more stitches. Okay, so you try and do that. And then you're going to go back the other way. Okay, so just skip over that one and then go back the other way. Now if you look here, you can see, can you see that on there? The needle is showing through, which means your thread is going to show through. So just pull that out and try again. Okay. The reason you need to go in different directions is because whether this is going to be a blanket, or whether it's going to be a scarf, it's going to get pulled about. So if you have it going in just one direction, it is going to come out. And you don't want it to come out. I'll show you one of them going in just one direction, and how easily it can come out. So I've gone back and forth and back, and then I'm just going to go back one more time. Now this one was already knotted at the end, so I didn't need to worry about securing that end. It's all secured itself. So that one's done. And then what you need to do, or what I do, is just give it a slight pull further out, and then I cut it right down close to the work, being careful not to cut your work. And then when you pull that back into shape, that end just slips in and disappears. And now if you pull this, it's not going anywhere. Those ends are in. And if you look, so I'm onto my green now, and this one wasn't ever secured, it was just through with the white. So what I'm going to do is bring it down here to the end. I'm just going to take it through one strand of yarn. If I can get it through, there we go. And then, as you would if you were sewing, if you were just doing normal sewing, I'm going to pop it back through that loop. Let's get that tail out. Pop it through that loop and just secure it with that knot. I don't know what that knot's called, but it's the type of knot you use, when you finish off if you're sewing a hem of a skirt or something. So just do that knot and then sew it in just as you have done on your previous row. And it's as simple as that. When you've got my tail's got caught, there we go. It's as simple as that. When you've got closed in work like this, it makes it so much easier if you're sewing in. Just go between stitches. Just make sure that you go back and forth, so you're securing it in all ways so it can't pull undone. So that's the point. I was going to show you if we went in just one direction. So I'm just going to go along here. So we go all the way along and we think, oh yes, that's nice and secure. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Done it all the way along. But then you start bearing it and it starts getting pulled around, and it starts, if you see here, it started bunching up and it all gets a bit loose, a bit floppy and not so good. So that's why you see these big loops here. That's why we go in different directions. I'm going to pull that out, and then in a moment I'm going to take that back through in some different directions. And this one as well, remember this white wasn't secured either, it just went through that green. So you would do the same as you did with the green. You would do that little knot at the start, and then you would secure that back through the white. And as much as possible, you want to try and take your colours through the same colour. If you take this white through here to secure it, it's going to show. And equally with the white, sometimes, you know, you can't avoid it, but usually you can go back through the same colour. So that's how you would sew in for something like this, where it's all closed in, and there's plenty of places to sew those in. So remember, back and forth, different directions. If you've got a bigger space like this, you can go sort of, you know, up, across, up, across. It doesn't have to be just straight up and down. But make sure you do go in a few different directions, and that will secure that. So that's one way of sewing in ends. Now let's have a look at something else. Okay, so this is the granny square we were doing the colour changes on earlier. So I'm just going to show you on this red colour change, I'm going to do the same thing that we did on that previous this previous piece that I showed you where we changed colours. I'm just going to do that little knot there to secure that. Okay, so do that little knot and secure that, and then because there isn't anywhere very solid to work on this one, we were able to just weave back and forth on the rows. There isn't really anything very solid, and you could just go through these the bottoms of the stitches there, and then go across, go in the bottoms of the stitches. That doesn't secure it very well, and I think that's where I came unstuck with my cushion. So what we're going to do is we're going to weave back and forth through these little loops on the back. Okay, we're not touching the front at all, just these little loops, little bobbly loops on the back of your stitches. Just go in a few different directions, trying not to go to the front, and just a few different directions. And because this is already bobbly on the back from just how our stitches work, the crochet stitches are a bit bobbly on the back, just because of that you can't really see a huge amount of sewing in. So then I like to go through a bigger piece and again through a longer piece, and then once you've done it a few times, you can then, as before, pull that slightly, snip off, and then pull that back, and then that is not going anywhere. I've got nothing coming out of there at all, nice and secure. Okay, I'm going to show you one other way of securing your work. Okay, now this is where the needle with a slight point helps, or if you've got one, a chenille needle, they have a nice long point on them, because you can do what's known as burying in your ends. So you need a sharp needle, but obviously you need a large eye as well, so that's where chenille needles come in handy. And what you do is, I can show you here, if you go and you break the strand, can you see that the strand is breaking there? You go in between the strand and pull through, and then, now this one I didn't have to do a knot for because I've already got my knot from fastening off. So you're going to do one there, And if you come over slightly, and then you're just going to go in between those strands of that yarn. So sorry, when I say strands of yarn, I mean if I show you this here, it's made up of several plies of yarn. If I twist this here, you can see there's several in there. So basically what we're trying to do is, if you can see this here, what we're trying to do is go between those strands there, so that our the rest of our yarn gets kind of caught in between there. So that's what we're trying to do. So if you can see this here, you still want to go in different directions though. So go between your fibres of yarn, making sure you go in more than one direction. So I know I keep going on about that, but you need to, so that it doesn't get pulled all in one. If it gets pulled, it doesn't all come out. So just try and go between those strands. Now ideally my needle would be slightly pointier. I need to get myself a proper chenille needle so that it would work a bit better. And the thing is, once you get used to doing this method, you can do it a lot quicker. Some people hate weaving in ends. I love it. I just like to put the telly on, or some Netflix, or just sit and natter. I took it to a coffee shop once and just sat drinking coffee, talking to my friend and sewing in my ends, and it just was great. So find a good way to do it, and then you won't get bogged down with it. So there we go, and then just pop the end through a little bit, and then you can snip that off just as we have done before. And then if you pull this, it's not going anywhere. You're buried in those ends, you can hardly notice it, and there you go. Hey presto, done. So actually these weaving in ends don't take too long at all. But do make sure you do it. And then just one other thing to tell you is somewhere here, I think this is it. This is I did this with a magic circle. Now if you've seen my other tutorial about the magic circle, you'll remember me saying that one tug and it comes undone. Okay, it pulls in nicely, but you give it a tug and it comes undone. So you just have to make sure that you do with this as you did with your colour change strands, that you your first one is that you do a little knot to secure it, okay, and then weave it in and around nice and securely so that that's not going to go anywhere, okay, and then snip it off, and hey presto, you're done. So there you go guys. If you've found this useful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button just down there somewhere. And until next time, just keep hooking and don't let your tea get cold.